HFY Story, The Laws of War RE063 Deathworlds, Warfare, and Humanity. The Galactic Council chamber, buzzed with the whispers of hundreds of alien diplomats. Holographic banners flickered with the Council's motto, Unity through Understanding. At the center of the chamber stood Ambassador Elias Gran, representing humanity recent inductees to the Galactic Union. Behind him hovered a shimmering holodisplay, projecting the words Case RE063, Deathworld Combat Violations. Grant straightened his posture, his sharp, predatory gaze sweeping over the assembled dignitaries. Let us proceed. The crystalline voice of High Arbiter Sisiri, a spindly Krathian, rang out. Ambassador Gran, your species is accused of disregarding the laws of war during the conflict on Novaris IX. How do you plead? Elias tilted his head slightly, a trace of a smirk playing on his lips. With all due respect, High Arbiter, humanity does not plead, we explain. The chamber erupted in murmurs. The audacity of humans had become their signature trait in galactic diplomacy, much to the irritation and occasional admiration of other species. Order. Sisiri's mandibles clicked sharply. Proceed with your explanation. Novaris IX, a deathworld in conflict. Novaris IX, a Class 9 deathworld, was infamous for its acidic oceans, carnivorous plant life, and a native predator known as the Strix basilisk, which could petrify prey with a single gaze. When the Kraltic hegemony invaded, the Galactic Union dispatched peacekeepers, including a contingent of human soldiers. The Kraltic were brutal. Following no recognized rules of engagement, civilian targets were obliterated, and bioweapons were deployed indiscriminately. When human forces arrived, they requested authorization to engage. The Galactic Union granted permission, but insisted on adherence to the laws of war. By the time the humans deployed, most peacekeeping forces were in retreat. Stories filtered in of human units fighting back the Kraltic, turning the tide of battle. The issue arose when reports claimed these humans violated galactic warfare protocols. Humanity's defense. Let's begin with a key point. Elias continued, gesturing to the holodisplay. It showed footage of human troops moving through the dense jungles of Novaris IX. Their armor was covered in mud, their movements methodical. Our soldiers were accused of camouflage, a tactic considered dishonorable under the laws of war. The Kraltic rely on thermal vision and have no concept of visual stealth. Should we have refrained from using one of our most basic survival instincts simply because they lacked the capability to adapt? The holoscreen shifted to a human medic treating an alien child with an improvised antidote. This, too, was cited and authorized medical assistance to civilians of non-allied species. I asked the council, would you prefer we let the child die? The murmurs grew louder, and a few representatives shifted uncomfortably. Elias' tone sharpened. Now to the most damning accusation, the deployment of improvised weapons. Humans adapted Novaris flora to create toxic darts and incendiaries. The Kraltic called this barbaric. I call it survival. When facing an enemy that unleashes bioweapons on civilians, are we expected to limit ourselves to standardized armaments? Humanity's philosophy. Elias stepped forward, his voice steady. Humanity comes from a deathworld Earth. Survival isn't just a choice, it's ingrained in our DNA. The laws of war, noble as they are, were written by species that evolved on temperate worlds, free from the relentless competition that shaped us. He paused, letting his words sink in. To us, war is not a game of honor, it's a grim necessity. When we fight to protect, to endure, to ensure that no one else has to. If that means breaking a rule to save a life or bending a code to end a threat, then so be it. A representative from the Seraph coalitionist species, known for the rigid adherence to rules, interrupted. But such actions threaten the foundation of the Galactic Union. If every species disregards the rules, chaos will reign. Elias turned to face them. And if we rigidly follow rules in the face of atrocities, what then? Is it chaos you fear or accountability? Humanity's actions on Novaris IX saved countless lives. If that unsettles you, perhaps it's because you see in us what you lack, the will to act when others hesitate. Verdict. The chamber fell silent as the High Arbiter deliberated. Finally, she spoke. The Council acknowledges the complexity of the situation. While humanity's methods were unorthodox, they were effective and necessary under the circumstances. Case RE063 is dismissed. However, a review of the laws of war is now imperative. Elias inclined his head, his expression unreadable. Thank you, High Arbiter. Humanity will gladly participate in such discussions. As he left the chamber, whispers followed him. Humanity, with its raw pragmatism and defiance of convention, was changing the galactic order, whether for better or worse. One thing was certain, the galaxy would never be the same. Elias Gren walked briskly through the marble corridors of the Galactic Union headquarters, his mind already spinning with the implications of the Council's decision. Beside him, Captain Juno Valen, a decorated officer from the Novaris IX campaign, fell into step. Well, Juno asked, her voice low but tinged with satisfaction. They dismissed the case, Elias replied, his tone neutral, but they're pushing for a rewrite of the laws of war. Juno smirked. About time someone shook up their little rulebook. Elias stopped, turning to face her. This isn't just about rewriting rules, it's about how they see us. Today, we're a necessary evil. Tomorrow, we might be the galactic standard bearers for warfare ethics or the ultimate prize. The path we take from here will define humanity's legacy in this union. Juno crossed her arms. Legacy. We're already rewriting the galaxy's idea of war. They'll adapt, or they'll be left behind. Perhaps, Elias said, his eyes narrowing as he gazed out a window at the shimmering lights of the Union capital. But we must tread carefully. It's one thing to win battles, Juno. It's another to win hearts and minds. Meanwhile, in the shadows, in a darkened chamber deep within the Kreltic hegemony's flagship, Supreme Warlord Jekra snarled as he watched the footage of the Council proceedings. The humans made fools of us, Jekra hissed, his talons digging into the metal armrest of his throne. They twist the Council to justify their savagery. This will not stand. A shadowy figure emerged from the corner of the room, its features obscured by a hood. Patience, Warlord. The humans are cunning, but they are also predictable. Their laws are their weakness. While they debate, we prepare, and when they least expect it. Jekra's lips curled into a cruel smile. They'll learn what it means to challenge the hegemony. Humanity's next challenge. Back on Earth, the United Nations Space Command UNSC convened in their own chambers. Holo displays buzzed with reports from Novaris IX and the Council's deliberations. We've bought ourselves some breathing room, Admiral Reiko Tanaka began, addressing the room of military and political leaders. But we've also painted a target on our backs. The Kreltic won't forget this. President Elena Cordova leaned forward, her hands clasped. Then we need to be ready not just for another battle, but for the political fallout. We're newcomers in this union, and we've already disrupted the status quo. Allies will be wary. Enemies will multiply. A young diplomat, barely in her 20s, spoke up. If I may, President, this isn't just a military or political fight. It's cultural. The galaxy sees us as Deathworlds, dangerous, unpredictable. We need to show them that our strength comes with purpose, that we fight not for dominance, but for a peace. The room fell silent. Reiko finally nodded. Then we lead by example. Diplomacy where possible, strength where necessary, and innovation always. Elena added, we'll refine our strategies, reshape the narrative, and ensure that humanity isn't just respected but indispensable. The ripple effect. As the Galactic Council began its review of the laws of war, debates erupted across the galaxy. Species from temperate worlds argued for preserving the old rules, while Deathworlds long relegated to the fringes found inspiration in humanity's defiance. On frontier planets, whispers of human resilience spread like wildfire. Some called them monsters, others called them heroes. But one thing was certain, the galaxy had never seen anything like them. For humanity, the Battle of Novaris IX was just the beginning. With every challenge, they proved that survival wasn't their only talent, it was their nature to adapt, to push boundaries, and to redefine what was possible. And as new threats loomed on the horizon, the galaxy would learn one undeniable truth. Deathworlders don't just survive, they thrive. The weeks following the dismissal of Case RE063 were anything but calm. humanity's actions on Novaris IX had sent shockwaves through the Galactic Union. The review of the laws of war, initiated by High Arbiter Sisiri, became a flashpoint for heated debate. In the sprawling amphitheater of the Galactic Union Council, representatives from hundreds of species gathered for what would be the first of many sessions. Holo displays mapped humanity's actions across the Novaris campaign, from their use of camouflage to their unconventional weaponry. Elias Grand Saturday at the human delegations table, flanked by a team of experts, military officers, scientists, and historians. Across the room, the Krultic delegation glared at him, their animosity palpable. High Arbiter Sisiri struck the ceremonial gong to begin. The laws of war are the foundation of this union, but recent events have revealed their limitations. Today, we address whether these laws must evolve to account for a species like humanity. A towering, insectoid diplomat from the Threxian hive collective clicked its mandibles. The humans' actions were effective, but they reek of savagery. Allowing such methods risks plunging us back into an era of chaos. Elias leaned into his microphone. With respect to the Threxian delegate, humanity's methods were not chaotic. They were calculated, proportional, and necessary. We adapted to the battlefield and faced an enemy that disregarded all norms. What alternative would you suggest? Surrender. The chamber murmured, some in agreement, others in outrage. The Krultic counteroffensive. Far from the debates of the Galactic Union, the Krultic hegemony moved to avenge their humiliation. Fleet Admiral Keswick, one of their most ruthless commanders, gathered a strike force at the edge of Union space. Their target, a newly established human colony on Epsilon Eridani IV. The colony, only months old, was still in its infancy. Its population of 10,000 civilians relied on a single orbital defense platform and a skeleton crew of military personnel. The Krultic saw it as an easy target, a chance to send a message. When the attack came, humanity's response was swift. A small task force, led by Captain Juno Valen, was already in the sector, conducting training exercises. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, Valen's forces engaged the Krultic with unrelenting ferocity. Using guerrilla tactics, they exploited the Krultic fleet's reliance on predictable formations. Mines disguised as asteroid fragments crippled to capital ships, while strike teams boarded and sabotaged others. Within hours, the Krultic fleet retreated in disarray. The cost, however, was high. The colony's defense platform was destroyed, and hundreds of civilians lost their lives. Galactic backlash. The news of the Krultic attack and humanity's bloody defense reached the Galactic Union within days. The Union was split. This is what happens when you let Deathworlds run unchecked. The Threxian delegate roared during an emergency session. Their existence invites violence. Elias Gran, weary but resolute, stood to respond. The Krultic attacked an unarmed colonial blatant act of aggression. Humanity defended itself and the innocents under its care. If that offends your sensibilities, perhaps your outrage is misdirected. The chamber erupted again, but this time, other voices joined in support of humanity. A diplomat from the Zikari, a species known for their pacifism, spoke cautiously. The humans did not start this conflict, but they ended it decisively. Perhaps we should learn from their ability to adapt rather than vilify it. Behind the scenes, as tensions rose in the council, whispers of clandestine alliances spread. The Krultic sought to rally other militaristic species to their cause, while Deathworld factions quietly approached humanity. In a dimly lit corridor outside the council chambers, Elias was approached by Urktal, a representative of the Grovector Miniona species, infamous for their own brutal survivalist culture. Ambassador, Urktal rumbled, their voice a low growl, your people fight with honor and effectiveness. Should you ever find yourselves in need of allies, the Grovec would stand with you. Elias regarded them carefully. I'll keep that in mind. Humanity's next move. Back on Earth, President Elena Cardova addressed a gathering of leaders and military advisors. We cannot rely on the Galactic Union to defend us, she said. The attack on Epsilon Eridani IV is proof of that. Humanity must prepare for a future where we stand alone here with allies we can trust. Admiral Reiko Tanaka outlined new initiatives. Enhanced fleet expansion, doubling the size of humanity's defensive forces. Deathworld Alliance Initiative, quietly reaching out to other Deathworlder species to form an informal coalition. Strategic adaptation, developing new technologies and tactics to counteract species with specialized advantages. The turning point, as the Galactic Union debated, humanity acted. Their pragmatism and resolve began to draw admiration from unexpected quarters. Species long marginalized in the Union saw humanity as a kindred spirit, a force that refused to bow to convention. But the Krultic were not finished. In the shadows, they plotted an escalation strike that would test humanity's resolve and shake the Galactic Union to its core. Humanity, meanwhile, prepared for the inevitable. They knew the galaxy was watching, and they intended to prove, once and for all, that Deathworlders were not just survivors, they were leaders. And when the next challenge came, humanity would be ready. The Galactic Union Council was fractured. Debates over the laws of war continued to drag on, but behind the formal proceedings, alliances were shifting. Humanity's rapid rise had upset centuries of careful balance among the major powers, and while some species admired their adaptability, others viewed them as an existential threat. In the cold void near the galactic rim, the Krultic hegemony gathered their fleets, planning a blow that would cement their dominance and bring humanity to its knees. This time, they would not settle for a simple attack. They sought annihilation. Humanity prepares. On Earth, the United Nations Space Command had mobilized. The attack on Epsilon Eridani, IV, had ignited a fire across the Terran colonies, and public opinion demanded action. Admiral Reiko Tanaka stood before the UNSC War Council, a holographic map of the galaxy spinning slowly behind her. "The Krultic won't stop," she said. "Their honor demands retaliation for their defeat at Novaris IX and Epsilon Eridani IV. Intelligence suggests they're massing a fleet near the Kuras Nebula. If they strike, it could hit any of our outer colonies or worse, Earth itself." President Elena Cardova, seated at the head of the table, nodded grimly. "What do you recommend?" Tanaka's gaze was steady. "We don't wait. We take the fight to them. Preemptive action is risky, but if we strike their fleet while it's still consolidating, we can buy ourselves time to fortify." There was a moment of silence before one of the civilian advisors spoke up. "Won't such an action make us the aggressors in the eyes of the Union?" Elias Gran, who had been quietly observing from the corner, stepped forward. "The Union already views us with suspicion, but if we act decisively and can frame this as a defensive maneuver, we can control the narrative. If we let the Krultic strike first, the casualties will be far worse and the galaxy will still blame us for provoking them." Operation Phantom Strike. Within days, humanity's fleets began to mobilize. Dubbed Operation Phantom Strike, the plan involved a multi-pronged assault on the Krultic staging grounds. It was bold, risky, and characteristic of humanity's aggressive pragmatism. Captain Juno Valen was given command of the UNSC Resolute, a state-of-the-art battleship designed for deep space combat. As her crew prepared for the mission, she addressed them in the ship's central briefing room. "I won't lie to you," she began, her voice carrying the weight of responsibility. "This mission is dangerous. The Krultic outnumber us, and their home territory gives them an advantage. But we have something they don't, what to fight for survival. The galaxy calls us Deathworlders. Let's remind them why." The crew erupted in cheers, their resolve unwavering. The Battle of Kuras Nebula. The Krultic fleet loomed like a storm cloud, a massive assembly of warships bristling with weaponry. They were confident, believing humanity would never dare strike first. But humanity did. Using stealth technology and the natural cover of the nebula, Valen's task force launched a surprise attack. Saboteur drones disabled key Krultic ships before they could even react, and specialized torpedoes ripped through their formations. The Krultic, caught off guard, scrambled to mount a counteroffensive. What followed was a chaotic and brutal engagement. Humanity's ships danced around their larger, slower vessels, exploiting weaknesses with pinpoint precision. Despite the success of the initial strike, the Krultic fleet's sheer size began to take its toll. Valen's forces sustained heavy losses, and the Resolute itself was badly damaged. "Captain, we're losing structural integrity," her tactical officers shouted. Valen gritted her teeth. "We hold the line. If we fall back now, we lose everything." As the Krultic moved to encircle the remaining human ships, Reinforcements arrive at Grovek warships, answering a covert call for aid. The Deathworlds alliance humanity had been quietly building, revealed itself in a thunderous charge, turning the tide of the battle. The Kreltuk, overwhelmed and demoralized, retreated, leaving behind a field of burning wreckage. Aftermath. The victory at the Kurus Nebula sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For the first time, a coalition of Deathworld species had stood against a major galactic power and won. In the Galactic Union Council, the debate over humanity's place intensified. The Threxian delegate slammed their mandibles in anger. This is exactly why humanity cannot be trusted. They wage war like barbarians and drag others into their chaos. But Jurgtal of the Grovek rose in defense. The Kreltuk sought to exterminate humanity. They acted in self-defense and we stood with them because their fight is our fight. The galaxy needs to adapt, or it will be swept away by those who refuse to play by outdated rules. Elias Gran, ever the diplomat, capitalized on the moment. The laws of war must reflect the realities we face. Humanity does not seek conflict, but we will not shy away from it when our survival is at stake. And now, we're not alone in this. A galaxy in flux, the victory solidified humanity's position as a rising power. The Deathworlds alliance began to take shape, quietly coordinating efforts to ensure mutual survival in a galaxy that often viewed them as outcasts. But new threats loomed on the horizon. The Kreltuk were wounded but not defeated, and whispers of other powers taking interest in humanity's rapid rise began to spread. Back on Earth, President Cardova addressed the United Nations. We are no longer the galaxy's newest species. We are its most unpredictable. Our survival has always depended on our ability to adapt, to forge alliances, and to turn challenges into opportunities. The road ahead will not be easy, but one thing is clear: humanity will endure, and we will thrive.